Hello guys, it's me Sim Urahara, and in this video I'll talk about the path of the Espada in the final arc, especially Grimmjow, as he is my favorite Espada, and the fact that Kobo didn't deal well in presenting this character by trying to hide it using some unsuccessful ways, which eventually led to ruin the presence of Grimmjow in the final arc, and Kobo missed up a great opportunity to make Grimmjow appear better. And so, as usual, in order to start our topic, I would like to start from the interviews that Kobo did before the beginning of the last arc. In one of those interviews, Kobo was asked about the Urahara in general and Espada in particular. Will they appear in the events of the last arc or not? And through Kobo's answer, several important things such as the return of Urahara had become impossible because he had turned into dust, while the return of Grimmjow and Nail was confirmed, as well as Hallibel. And based on this answer, the editor put this table that shows the probability of the return of the Espada characters in the last arc. And so, as we can see, at that time all of Yami and Urahara, in addition to Xylo and Aranio, the percentage of their return was 0. Of course, I'm talking about the Quincy arc, not the events of Hell chapter. The important thing is that during that time, I personally was very excited to see Grimmjow return to events again, especially since Kobo confirmed that his return would be as an ally, not enemy. Moreover, I saw the return of the Urahara in the last arc was a good move by Kobo to try to drag some readers back into reading Bleach, as the popularity of the story was declining during that time. And so that's what Kobo has been trying to do since the beginning of the final arc. In chapter 484, we saw the appearance of Hallibel imprisoned at Urahara, and then in the next chapter, Nail appeared in the real world, and immediately after that, Ichigo moved with Kiski to Wikomondo. And thus, we noticed how Kobo tried to recreate the atmosphere of the Urahara arc with Quincy flavor. I mean, we saw Minole and Loli, as well as the fraction of Hallibel, and therefore everyone was waiting for when Grimmjow would appear in the events. And as I noticed, Grimmjow is the most popular Espada in Japan, and you may notice that in the game Bleach Brave Souls, there is a lot of focus on him, and that due to his popularity in Japan. So at the beginning of the last arc, I strongly believed that Grimmjow's return would be a strong comeback in several aspects, the first of which is that he is popular among readers, and second for his value as a character who had a major role in the Urahara arc. His fight against Ichigo ranked 3rd as the most favorite fight among Japanese readers, and even Kobo considers that fight one of his favorite fights, and that's why everything was ready for the return of Grimmjow. However, with unparalleled strangeness, Kobo will enter Grimmjow in a very bad maze that I may call it who is the owner of the sword. Perhaps those who followed the last arc weekly will know what I mean. As you know, in Wikomondo, Ichigo was fighting Kilgi, and this latter caused a lot of trouble for both Ichigo or Urahara Kiski. And so that fight was punctuated by several encounters like Hallibel's fraction, Ichigo and Ion, and after the defeat of Ion, Ichigo used his Bankai and then Kiski enters. And the manga at that time had reached chapter 500. And Kobo did not want to let this number unnoticed. In that chapter, Kilge used his Schrift ability, the jail, and he prevented Ichigo from going to the Soul Society and also made Urahara Kiski unable to move, which made everyone in a bad situation, especially Inoue and Shadow. And here, another character will intervene, and with one hit, he will split Kilge OP into 2 halves, and the attack was very brutal as you can see, and Kobo deliberately made the scene of that page from the angle of the attacker, so that at lightning speed after he eliminated Kilgi, he headed towards Kiski and put the sword on the side of his head. And Kobo ended the chapter with this sentence: Kiski in a danger, who owns the sword? And the end of that chapter was very exciting. I remember how the forums exploded with discussions about the identity of the owner of the sword. Personally, I was sure that the owner of that sword was Grimmjow, Some talked about other possibilities, but the vast majority believed that it was Grimmjow, and I said, voila, this is the best moment in which we can see Grimmjow, especially since the events were very blazing with the attack of the Vanderreich on Sereti, and so the appearance of Grimmjow would increase the enthusiasm. I remember spending an entire week of anticipation and waiting for the next chapter to see the appearance of Grimmjow, and I started to imagine how the meeting of Grimmjow and Urahara would be, and I started imagining the new shape of Grimmjow and many other things around it. But Kobo had a different opinion, because in the next chapter he didn't continue with what happened to Kiski in chapter 500, but rather he moved to the battle of Byakhya and Ace-Knot, and what happened in that battle and the bad feedback of the fans about the defeat of Byakhya and whether he died or not, and the attack of the fans on Kobo on his Twitter made the majority forgot the issue of the owner of the sword. But personally, I did not forget. I wanted Kobo to return soon as possible to complete that scene, and I said to myself, okay, it seems that Kobo will return to Grimmjow in a future event, and he will do a flashback to how Grimmjow met Kiski, Urahara, and what happened to them, because I thought that delaying the appearance of Grimmjow would have a bad effect on Grimmjow, and so that the longer Kobo delays, the excitement will decrease, and this is what happened later. Unfortunately, Kobo continued to ignore Grimmjow with hiding parts of his body, like if we were looking for the Exodia parts. I don't know what was the logical reason behind that, because everyone knows that this person is Grimmjow, and so all we knew through Kiski's contact with Ichigo is that Urahara made an agreement with Grimmjow, and it was not clear what that agreement was about. Then in chapter 444, Kobo continued to black out Grimmjow and only made him appear behind shadows. And you know what happened after that. Kobo stopped after 2 chapters and we entered the second half of the arc. And at that time I was completely sure that the opportunity for Grimmjow to appear in a good way had completely disappeared, or any appearance of a character we liked like Nail or Hallibel. So if we take the scenes of chapter 518 that were the last scenes in which Kobo refers to Grimmjow, then we can say that as our readers we waited for 106 chapters to see the official appearance of Grimmjow, and that was long enough for everyone to forget even whether Grimmjow would appear or not, and therefore his appearance was very faint and in a cold event. I mean, not like chapter 500 when Grimmjow appeared in events in which Kiski himself was a danger, and that flashback that I was waiting for. How Kiski met Grimmjow the first time and what was the agreement between them, I think Kobo personally forgot about it. And I still remember when the chapter about the appearance of Grimmjow was published, Kobo made a message in Shonen Jump where he said that he had forgotten about how he was drawing the hair of Grimmjow. And this is a clear evidence that Kobo at some point scattered his papers between the events that were being built and abandoned and the new events that he made for the second half, and this is entered the story into randomness. I mean, even when Grimmjow appeared, we didn't see any real fight for him except for his short clash with Askin, while we were supposed to see a complete fight for Grimmjow, like we see how much his strength has developed, as well as a new flashback from what he was doing after Aizen's battle ended, as well as to see his second release through a battle against a Shianite. And unfortunately, none of this happened. Same thing with Neil and Hallibel. All the Arrancar that Kobo promised to appear had no real fights. I mean, if my memory does not fail me, Hallibel appeared at the beginning of the arc and then Kobo forgot about her. For example, it was possible to see events related to her getting rescued and returning to the battlefield, and thus I can describe that the fate of the Arrancar, especially Espada, such as Grimmjow, Nail and Hallibel, was catastrophic par excellence. I don't know if Kobo has a plan to fix this situation in the anime or not, because we have to be realistic. Kobo can't fix everything. Sure, some things will be overlooked and left as they are, and he may fix other things. In the last novel, Can't Fear Your Own World, Grimmjow, Nail and Hallibel fought some battles, whether against the surviving Generator or against Hikone, but that wouldn't fix what was ruined in manga. So in the end guys, what do you think about the path of the Espada in the final arc, and see you in my next video.